Frogs by Gail Gibbons. The jelly-like cluster of eggs floats among the water weeds at the pond surface. These eggs are the beginning of frogs. A breeze ripples the surface. The floating clump of eggs is called a frog spawn. These are the eggs. Otherwise, the eggs could dry up and die. So they have to be in the water and clump together. These eggs do not have hard shells. They are inside jelly-like coverings. As they float, the jelly lets the sun's warmth come through the eggs inside. Not all the eggs will survive. Each one is an egg. Most of the time, the large and slimy mass of eggs is too slippery and too big to be eaten. This is nature's way of protecting them. But some of the smaller clusters of eggs will be eaten by creatures living in or near the pond, like that little fish. The dark centers of the eggs slowly grow into frog embryos. The embryos grow until they look like small tadpoles. Tadpoles are frog babies. As they grow, they feed off their own egg yolks. So inside that dark, that's a frog embryo. And as they grow, they actually eat this jelly-like thing that's protecting them. Oh, I guess I'm wrong. There's something in there they're eating, a yolk. But not all of the egg gets eaten up because it's still there. The tadpoles grow until they are big enough to break free into the water. It can take from 3 days to 3 weeks for this to happen, depending on what kind of frogs they will become. So that's the tadpole. One by one, the tadpoles hatch from their eggs. They each have a tail and a body. This is their body, and that's their tail right there. Tail and body. The tadpoles wiggle their tails to swim. The tadpoles breathe by getting air from the water through the feathery outside gills. As they swim, they eat very small plant-like algae that stick to larger water plants. So here's the gills. Can you see them? That's why I guess they're called kind of feathery. I had a hard time saying that word, didn't I? And here's algae. Algae is kind of, see those black spots? That's kind of what they're eating. They're not eating the leaf yet. Nope, just the algae. 1 week later, the tadpoles look different. They are bigger. Their gills begin to shrink and disappear. A flap of skin slowly grows over them. The tadpole's mouth becomes hard with tiny teeth in their upper jaws. Okay, see their gills? They're getting smaller. Now the tadpoles are 1 month old. New gills inside the tadpoles take oxygen from the water. Their tails are wider for stronger swimming. Something wonderful begins to happen. The base of their tails bulges. At the base of their tails, bulges disappear. I'm sorry. At the base of their tails bulges up here. So there's a bulge. It's not quite as straight as it used to be. There's it straight, and now it's getting a bulge there. See, I'm just making mistakes here, aren't I? Bulge, bulge. This is not a bulge. That's not the bulge. No, no, no. It's right there. Okay. I probably should read this page again. Now the tadpoles are 1 month old. New gills inside the tadpoles take oxygen from the water. Their tails are wider for stronger swimming. Something wonderful begins to happen. At the base of their tails, bulges appear. This is where the frog legs are growing. Because you've seen frogs and they have legs, right? At 2 months old, the tadpole starts about the pond as they eat. The tadpoles get bigger. Now they have hind legs. Behind their heads, bulges appear where their front legs are growing. So here's their hind legs, and we see a bulge right there. And that's where their front legs will come. Their tails become smaller. The tadpoles' gills inside their bodies are gone. They have grown lungs to use for breathing. Now and then they wiggle to the surface to breathe in air. So they need to breathe in air like we do, not underwater anymore. They don't get their air from underwater. The tadpoles are about 3 months old. Does it look more like a frog, August? Again, they look different. They have front legs. Their tails are even smaller. Their tadpole skin and lips are absorbed into their gut. The tadpoles have become tiny frogs. They still have a tiny, tiny tail. They climb out of the pond and onto the land. Their tails will become smaller and smaller until it finally disappears. The tiny frogs begin to eat insects and worms. Frogs are amphibians. The word amphibian comes from a Greek word that means 2 lives. An amphibian can live on land and in water. Frogs are cold-blooded. That means their inside body temperature are about the same as the outside temperature. During the next few years, the tiny frogs will grow to be mature frogs. Then they will be able to make their own frog spawn, and there will be new baby frogs. So they can be frog parents. Frogs have many body parts. This is their eye. See those 2 little holes? That's their nostril. Up there is their teeth. They're really, really, really hard to see, but if you look, those white spots. Those white spots are their teeth. Of course, that is their tongue. Their tongue is attached to the front of their mouth. So right there is attached. Ours is attached in the back. Okay. And their tongue is sticky. I'm glad my tongue isn't sticky. Okay, this little circle is their ear, or their ear is also called a tympanum, and this is their skin. It's spotted in green and yellow. Front leg, back legs. They have 5 toes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Their toes are webbed. That means they have skin. attaching between each toe. In the back and in the front, they have 4 toes. 1, 2, 3, 4, and no webs. Frogs don't hunt for food. Their big eyes are on top of their heads so they can see almost all the way around. Can you imagine being able to see in the back of your head? They stand very still. When something flies or crawls or swims nearby, their long, sticky tongues dart out to catch it. They swallow their food whole. See how it flips its tongue out and catches that fly and swallows him whole. Can you imagine eating a whole piece of pizza whole without chewing it? Frogs that swim use powerful hind legs and web feet to push them through water. They have wonderful, wonderful flippers. One set is transparent so they can see through. Frogs have 2 sets of eyelids. Frogs have one set that is transparent so they can see through them, and that protects his eyes underwater. When frogs dive into the water, they close these eyelids to protect their eyes, but they can see through them. It's like their very own goggles. On land, frogs hop about. Frogs are able to jump very far. The tendons in their legs, like there, can stretch and recoil like a spring. This means most frogs can jump 10 times their body length. Wouldn't that be cool? That's like you jumping from one end of the house to the other, almost, right? That is cool. Frogs do have enemies. Foxes, snakes, rats, birds, and other creatures eat frogs when they can catch them. A sudden leap is quick escape from danger. For protection, some frogs have skin glands that make them taste bad or even make them poisonous. Sometimes their skin color hides them from their enemies. This is called camouflage. So it makes him harder to see so that enemies can't find him. Croak. Frogs make different sounds. We have frogs out in our backyard, August, and every night, and even in the day, we hear ribbit, ribbit all the time, and it's really fun to hear. Often male frogs call their mates this way with croaking. They pull air into their air sac they pull air into their air sacs at their throats. The air sacs expand to look like bubbles. When the frogs force the air out of their air sacs and into their lungs, the air passes over their vocal cords, which vibrate to make sounds. They make different calls that have different meanings. Sometimes frogs are very loud. Yes, they are very, very loud. Where it is cold in the winter, frogs go into a totally emotionless state, like sleeping, called hibernation. Some hibernate in sheltered hollows. Okay, so see how they're sleeping underground? That's what they do in Minnesota. Others dig into the bottom of a muddy pond or lake. They hibernate all winter long. We never see a frog in the winter in Minnesota, and yet we have hundreds in the springtime. In the springtime, when the sun begins to warm up the ground and the pond's water, the frogs come out of hibernation. They are healthy and hungry. They haven't eaten all winter. Herpetologists are people who know a lot about frogs and other amphibians. They spend lots of time watching and waiting to learn more about them. Experts tell us there are about 7,200 different kinds of frogs. So she's a herpetologist, or he is. I'm sorry, I didn't see his mustache. I thought it was a lady. My mistake. Frogs play an important role in the balance of nature. They keep insects under control by eating so many of them. Also, frogs are food for other animals. Frogs are many different sizes, shapes, and colors, and it's fun to learn about them. August, you can be a frog expert too. Look, there's a red one, a yellow one. That one's kind of a tan yellowish. Then there's a green one. What is the difference between a frog and a toad? A frog, he has kind of a narrow body. His leaves are long. He has long hind legs. He has small teeth in his upper jaw. They live in or near the water. They have smooth, soft skin. And they lay a swarm of eggs in the water. And a toad has thick, dry, bumpy skin. It has a very plump body. It has much shorter legs. See how short, see how long and short. It has short leaves and it moves slowly. And their eggs are in strings instead of a clump. Look at those string of toad eggs. And they don't have any teeth. And toads live on the land, not on water. The end.